Okay, hi everybody. This is Tom Hart, and
Aliza.
I'm here with Aliza Einhorn. And Aliza is teaching our tarot class, and I'm going to let her explain the class a little more, but I'm also going to let her talk to me about tarot imagery and tarot decks, because it's actually something I don't know anything about. So I'm going to play Watson to your Sherlock Holmes. So when you look at a class that's about creating your own deck or creating your own tarot imagery or something, what's your purpose in guiding people through that?
I want people to know some of the history. They don't need to know all of it. I want them to know some of it. Some of the history, some of the tradition, some of the context, some of the decks that are used the most, just the familiar ideas, the familiar images, what they mean, some background, not just, because a tarot deck is not the same as a deck of playing cards or any other deck. It's something very specific. A tarot deck is not the same as say an oracle deck from Doreen Virtue or some other famous names who makes these other kinds of decks. It's very different. It's very specific. It has a context. So I want people who are interested in making decks and who know nothing about it or maybe know a little bit about it to have that background. But again, my perspective really comes from someone who uses the cards practically daily. I want artists, writers, anyone who's interested in making a deck to be more informed about the tarot in general. And specifics.
So do you see examples of people going about it in uninformed ways? And if so, what will informing themselves, how will it help them?
Well, I'm a big believer in the rules. So you learn the rules and then you break them. And then there's so much more depth. Of course, that's just my opinion, but there's so much more depth to your deck when you know what you're doing and that the deck you create is in conversation with everything else that comes before. Just for me as a tarot reader, I think that's more interesting because I can look at a deck, a new deck, and think, wow, this person, knows the Rider-Waite Smith deck.
But this history that you talk about, it's 500 or 600 years old or something like that, right? And you said you're in dialogue with all these other decks, right? And with this tradition, and you think that deepens the imagery, or it deepens the messages in the cards.
Because then you're responding to something. We never create anything in a vacuum anyway. I like bringing the intention into it, Okay, I want to create a tarot deck. I'm going to learn a little bit about the history. I'm going to look at some other decks.
To me, it looks so overwhelming. I think if I were to think I would create a tarot deck, I would just get overwhelmed. I'm just going to create a fictional Star Trek language or something. I don't have that kind of time.
Well, that's a good idea. I like that idea. But you know what? But that's why, with the class is created not to be overwhelming. Put it this way, it's meant to stimulate very deep creativity and deep thinking. But we're not going to be talking about, detail after detail of the history. It's not going to be like a list of dates and facts and all of that. Does this make sense, the distinction I'm trying to make? Even in the course material, I called it, the least you need to know, or a very brief history of tarot.
But if you pull a Four of Wands, you know the 10 or 12 or 20 or 50 other Four of Wands that you've pulled in the past, and you know those other images, and you're speaking, from a sort of tapestry of other images, right?
That's exactly what I do. Actually, when I read cards, if I read cards for someone and I pull, I'm thinking of the Six of Pentacles, that in two of my favorite decks, they're very different. They're very, very different. And I'll say, I'm using the Witch's Tarot. And in the Witch's Tarot, the Six of Pentacles looks like this. And it's that, you're exactly right, that in my head, I see all these other cards and all these other versions. And again, it adds depth, it adds layers of meaning.
So maybe that's a good place to introduce an old student of mine. Hi, Joe. An old student of mine, Joe Boginski, sent us this card deck, this tarot deck, Omegaland. And to me, my first glance at it, it looked crazy because it's full of guns, and crossbows and survivalist imagery and stuff like that. And it is probably very opposite of the witchy imagery I have come to see in more traditional homegrown tarot decks. Upon looking at it, I wondered if it's not actually really traditional in a lot of ways.
It is. I'm looking at it now for the first time, and I really like it. Look,
well, let's talk about it. And I pulled up the Six of Coins too, since you mentioned it. Yeah, do you want to see it?
This Empress is so perfect.
Oh, yeah?
The Empress is a feminine goddess, and is this not?
Yeah,
a
she's great.
2017 feminine goddess. I mean, if you look in an older deck like the Rider-Waite, you'll see the opulent dress and the throne and the crown, and she's often pictured pregnant.
That's great. I've actually looked at this card deck a little more. This is your first time seeing the deck.
Yeah.
Or I'm pretty sure she's the only person growing anything in this survivalist landscape. She's the only one with a garden.
That's the Empress. So that's brilliant. This is real. This is really brilliant.
Wow.
Because this is 2017. It reminds me of a Brooklyn rooftop garden.
Yeah. It's definitely an urban landscape.
Which is, it's interesting you mentioned urban landscape, because that is one of the questions I ask at some point. I forget which week it is. But what is your landscape? Where are the people? Where are they situated? Because it doesn't have to be this pastoral, hills and valleys of the many decks we are familiar with.
Right.
Not all of them, but many.
Yeah, well, these guys are riding motorcycles, and they're in
the Knight of Cups is on a motorcycle. Yeah, I think it's brilliant.
Let's take a look at a few more of these. You mentioned the Six of Pentacles or the Six of Coins. What is going on here?
Well, he's feeding them.
Yeah. Is that anything similar to the other cards you were talking about?
Yeah, in the Rider-Waite Six of Pentacles, there is a rich man, a man with money, and he's holding a scale. The Six of Pentacles actually is a very complex card, and people write about it in that way. What does it mean? What's really going on in this image? But there's the rich man. Some people say he's a miser, and he's just giving a little to the people begging him. Rationing.
Yeah, well, this is clearly rationing because everybody is limited to a certain number of cans. Did you see some of the other suits?
No, not yet.
We've got coins and cups, right? So our cups are these water jugs.
I think that's.
Our knight is on his motorcycle is got his water jug there.
And this is a modernization because the knights are on horses.
Sure. And again, the swords here are crossbows.
This is King of Cups drawn.
Certainly looks tired. What's the King of Cups traditionally?
I'll tell you how I read the King of Cups. For me, the King of Cups is very emotional. He has so many feelings, but because he's a king, he can't express them.
Well, that guy's brooding.
He's got a kingdom to run, the King of Cups, traditionally.
Compare him to the King of Swords. That guy looks like he's not giving anything away emotionally. Where this guy, the King of Cups,
it's leaking out, right?
Yeah.
The King of Swords is very interesting. I think it's Rachel Pollack, who's a famous tarot writer. She's the one who says the King of Swords is the only one who actually wants to be king. And the rest of them are, they'd rather be nice. They're frustrated in their position. They want to be doing something else. They're not comfortable, but the King of Swords wants to rule and enjoys it.
King of Wands. What is that guy about? Since we're on the subject of kings. He looks like he got called up to become king.
They say that the King of Wands rather be a knight. He wants to be, because Wands is fire. Wands is fire, action, activity. It's very dynamic initiation.
Oh, so you don't want to be giving the orders. You want to be on the horse.
Yeah,
you want to be on the motorcycle.
Running around. Yeah, the King of Wands rather be a knight.
Swords. Look, one of the first things I texted you was just how violent some of these cards are, but not all of them, just a few. And I specifically said the 8 of Swords, I think, and then I think I said the 10.
Said the 10.
And you said those are violent cards normally.
Yeah, they are. They are.
Tell me about that, and then I'll show you these two, and you can talk about them too.
The suit of swords is not an easy suit. It is the most difficult suit. It is a suit of strife, conflict, pain, violence. Yes. So he is being true to form.
Hmm.
I mean, if someone, this is actually one reason why I love the Connolly deck so much, because she does take those very difficult swords cards and makes them beautiful without diminishing the difficulty, which I don't know if I've seen anyone else do that. I really love that deck.
Is it the 10 that has the woman in the blue, blue background? It's a beautiful card.
Yeah, and that's in the Rider-Waite. That's the guy, face down with 10 swords in his back.
So tell me, so in the Connolly deck, the 10, it still represents a sort of assault on this main character, on this person in the card, but they just haven't touched her.
Yeah, but the swords don't touch her. If I were to see that card for someone, I know that they just feel defeated. They might literally be betrayed, stabbed in the back. The reality might not be as bad as they feel. That's another thing that people write about. Oh, those swords cards, they're exaggerating. Because the swords is the mind. It's not really that bad. You're just overthinking, or you're anxious, or, you're crying wolf even. But, if you get these cards, if you get the 8 and the 9 of swords, 8, 9, 10 of swords, there's something wrong. I mean, tarot is very specific, okay? The 4 of Wands is not the 10 of Swords. They're opposites.
The 4 of Wands is very celebratory, right?
Yes, it's joy, Thanksgiving, reunion, family,
Well,
happy.
look at that. You just said Thanksgiving, and look, there's a turkey there.
Oh, look
on
at
his
that.
4 of Wands, right? Or
I love
chicken
it.
or something.
Well, it's a family dinner.
Yeah.
I mean, these couldn't be farther apart.
Right.
I think he did a great job.
And look at that. Those wands those guns are actually on the wall. They're sort of in retreat for that moment. They're also the 4 of Wands. I remember seeing they create a sort of canopy, which is happening here a little bit. It's this.
Are the wands guns?
Yeah.
Oh.
Yeah. Rifles and pistols both. So I want to ask you another question. You've said to me before, the 4 in all the decks or in all the suits are very stable. And we just saw that with the 4 of Wands here. The 4, I'm going to pull out the 4 of Swords. Tell me about the 4 of Swords traditionally, for instance. Like you say it's a very violent suit. That's a pretty peaceful card.
The 4 of Swords is peaceful.
Yeah.
The 4 of Swords is a rest.
Amidst violence? Is that what you're sort of saying?
It could be a break.
Uh-huh.
I mean, if you think about the run, if you think about the order, the 3... And I'm in my head, I'm thinking of the Rider-Waite as my example here. But the 3 of Swords is heartbreak. The 3 of Swords is separation.
2 dead people there.
Separation, sorrow, dead people. So the 3 of Swords is heartbreak and sorrow and separation. And then comes this. It's a break.
After the...
It's a rest.
Now here's an example where I'm going to ask what might be a dumb question because I don't know tarot too well. But you've just told me about the 3 and the 4.
And then the 5.
No, I want to go backwards. What is the 1 and the 2? What leads up to the break? What leads up to the heartbreak, and then what really leads up to the rest? Tell me about the 1 and the 2. Or the ace and the 2, sorry.
You know what may lead up to the heartbreak of the 3? Is either, I'll tell you, A, making the wrong decision, or B, not making a decision at all.
And that's what his 2 is. Look at that.
The 2 of Swords is stalemate.
Right? Is that what this? Look at this. He can go this direction or that direction.
Which way does he go? And he doesn't do anything.
He stands there.
Sometimes, but what's very interesting? Again, for me, because I'm not a visual artist. I'm this other thing. So tarot always goes back to the moment. Always, for me, goes back to the moment of the reading. Someone is sitting with you, across from you, asking you a question. That's the act of it, for me. And that is one long tradition of it. So in that context, let's say I drew that card for you as advice. So that advice is telling you, don't decide, don't do anything, sit, wait, deliberate, the answer will come. In the Rider-Waite, the guy is blindfolded. The woman, actually, I should say, not the guy. The woman is blindfolded.
Is she at some sort of crossroads, or is there...
She's sitting on a stone bench with the sea at her back. And she's actually very calm.
But a decision has to be made.
That's what we see in the 2s, in the tarot 2s. Decisions.
Isn't that interesting? So you've told me that the tarot is a story, it's a story within a story. Does that mean in a certain way? And again, I think this is a dumb question because I'm not versed in the tarot.
No dumb questions.
Okay, so assuming a suit starts with the ace, which we haven't really discussed, already with the twos there's a decision to be made, and already with the threes and the fours there's action and consequences. Is that right for all the suits? Or is it just the swords because there's so much action in that suit?
So you're asking me if all the suits tell the same story, essentially.
Well, yeah, if there's a similar structure, maybe.
I think we'd have to go suit by suit. I'd have to think, okay, 3 of swords is painful, but the majority of the swords are painful. 3 of cups is supremely happy. There's so many ways you could approach it, and they are all questions. I think there's more questions than answers. In terms of the types of questions that you're asking, they are more questions than answers. I mean, we could look at it as a progression, a sequence, right? I don't think tarot actually is a true sequence in the sense that, it makes sense. This led to this, led to this. We can say it is, but that is a question. Is it random? But then that leads us to another question. Is anything random? I mean, we can make a sequence or call anything random, can we not?
And we can connect anything.
Yeah.
Also.
So does the 1 lead to the 2, lead to the 3, lead to the 4, and so on in each of the suits the same way? I would say no. But I would also say I would want to lay out all the cards and think about it again. But people say the same thing about the major arcana. The Fool's Journey. The 0 leads to the 1, leads to the 2, leads to the 3, leads to the 4. Well, anyone with a brain can see that that's not really true, and it doesn't make sense. But people still insist on, putting this frame on it. That to me is random,
Interesting. So maybe that's
Does
a
this
great...
make sense?
It totally makes sense. Maybe that's a great segue into the major arcana in this particular deck. Do you want to take a look at those?
Sure. I'm still thinking about that 1, 2, 3 though.
Well, again, I think I'm throwing you crazy questions because I'm not that versed in this stuff.
No, they're not crazy. The truth is, and this isn't a class in reading cards for people per se. Although I can't 100% keep that out, and I shouldn't, but I think tarot matters most and really comes alive in that moment of reading for someone, for me. And
that makes sense.
And there is a long tradition of that the cards are used for prediction, for fortune telling. There's someone else there.
So for what it's worth, in addition to readings for this particular deck, it says it's a card game too. I haven't looked into it, but it has instructions and all sorts of stuff.
And that's very traditional, which is something that I mentioned in the class. In the class notes that's about as traditional as you can get, is to create a tarot deck that is a card game. Because that is the origin. The origin of the origin of the origin is card game.
Well, look at any of these.
Sure.
I don't know anything about any of these cards.
There's the High Priestess. Yeah, that's another great one. That's another feminine goddess archetype, feminine goddess image.
I think everyone's drawn to the major arcana because of that word archetype that you just said, right? Everyone likes to find themselves in an image or in a persona or in a mythic figure, right? And it's maybe people are really drawn to the major cards for that.
And that brings us to another topic, which is always so interesting to me, is that I never see myself in the major arcana cards. At least not these. Never in the High Priestess, never in the Empress. Except, the High Priestess in terms of trusting your intuition. But this person, whoever this is, that's not me.
No.
I don't see this and think, I relate to this female image.
Right.
Not in a million years. I don't have that catalog. I'll never have that catalog. I'll never go shopping there. I'm never going to be that spy in the great boots. That's not me. That's not what I'm about.
But if you were to create your own deck,
I could
you would create a high priest or
a high priestess me.
Yeah.
I could. And my high priestess might look more, I don't know yet. Because I haven't even attempted to create a high priestess yet.
I've seen you do some of the minor
suits,
but I haven't seen you do...
Well, I did the Hangman.
Oh, you did the Hangman.
My high priestess would probably not be so fashionable. Not that I fault him for that, because I think there are many people who would relate to this card and say, yeah, that's someone to admire and emulate. And she's powerful. The High Priestess is a powerful female goddess, psychic, receptive. She's often contrasted with the magician because the magician goes out and does stuff. The magician is active.
Is in another question, and again, it's a crazy question because I don't know anything about the tarot. Do any of these major characters feature again in the deck ever? Like, do you see the High Priestess in it?
You know what the correspondence is? Is the number. That's one way that we connect. The High Priestess is a 2, and then she will connect to all the 2s.
Really?
Yes.
Okay, so in what way? Tell me more. Because you mentioned, for instance, the Two of Swords was about this moment of indecision, or this moment of...
Waiting.
Yeah. She looks like this particular priestess looks like she's waiting.
The High Priestess does wait.
Oh.
She is the principle of receptivity. We could even say that she's passive. Because she's waiting for the information, the High Priestess, waiting for the psychic intel.
Huh.
I think maybe one thing that we're discovering through this conversation is we can't use logic to understand it and how it works. Because we fall down, we fall into a hole. At least that's how I feel.
But you need a little bit, otherwise you're a kid playing in a box full of pictures, right? But you need a little bit of logic to be able to
There's
at
a
least
third
order
thing.
it, right? A little bit.
There's but we have the numbers for that and the suits and everything else that organizes it. But the other thing, the third thing, is the intuition. The intuition and the emotions.
Yeah. So let's wrap this up and let me ask you: do you think your own intuition deepens as you acquire new decks? Because I see you've got a number of decks around you, and also has your own intuition deepened as you have begun sketching some of your own cards?
I'd like to approach the second question first.
Sure.
I don't know. That's one of the best answers, is I don't know. I don't know if making my own cards, I've only done a few, made my intuition better. But it brought me to a deeper place in myself and connected me to a part of me that has been absent from my life. So how can that not spill out in what I do for other people? How can it not? So...
it's related to what Justine does in her class. She says, you don't have to learn how to master the brush and ink or any tool. The more you try and deepen your facility with it, the more you'll have access to the truth when you want it, she says.
That's deep.
I've always wondered about the star card. Isn't that beautiful?
This is my favorite star ever. And you know what I also like is that she's not naked. In every version of the star, there's a naked woman, and I actually like that she's wearing something. That is a beautiful card. It's a beautiful sky. She's the water bearer. This card is associated with Aquarius. Over the years, the cards all got astrological associations. Over the years, over the decades, over the centuries. So she's the water bearer, which is Aquarius. And you can see she's filling up her jug, right?
What is her role in a spread? Or
she's a good card. She's a good card to see, although I think of her as the future. If you have a problem, this is a card you definitely want to see. This is a good outcome. Something good is going to result. If you're looking for timing, you would want to draw some extra cards. Because to me, this is like, not around the corner. It's not so fast.
She's got this dreamy look on, and I don't mean dreamy in a vague way. I mean, it looks like she's looking to the future.
Yeah.
And that star, we know that star in the sky is going to travel a long ways.
Yes, and it's a wonderful card for health, recovery. If God forbid you're struggling with something health-wise and you draw this, wow, you're going to get better. Think about it. This versus the Ten of Swords. The Ten of Swords is going to be a lot darker before the dawn. But here, it's not that long. tarot is very specific, like I was saying before. The Four of Wands is not the Ten of Swords. So as you set about to create your deck, it's important to remember that. You're not going to have all happy cards, and you're probably not going to have all sad cards, and you wouldn't want to. I mean, I suppose you could, but I think ideally the tarot reflects life as it is.
Well, I'm going to ask all these questions and more in your class. I'm really super excited to take it.
You wanna make sure, you or anyone who's interested in doing it, you want to make sure not to get in your own way. You know, when you set out to actually create, go back to basics. I tell people this all the time. So learn whatever you want to learn and then forget it all. And then start creating from your feeling, intuition, from your gut. Because otherwise you'll never begin if you're thinking about, oh, I have to represent this and I have to represent that.
Justine calls that internalizing.
Yeah, you just want to you want a little bit of tarot background, and then you want to tell your story, and then you want to figure out how you're going to tell it. I mean, the last thing I want is the class to make people feel like it's out of their reach, you know, or that they can't do it, or that it's too difficult. I like to break things down to make them more simple and to get people thinking in a fun way. You know what I'm saying? Like, when you just listed all those things that you have to consider, it made me feel like, no, don't even get stuck in that. Just think, oh, wands. Do I want to do wands? Or do I want to do torches or flashlights? Maybe I want to do flashlights. Maybe I want to do
bones,
toothbrushes, you know? Yeah, something. And the wand is a phallic symbol, so, you know, maybe that's irrelevant to this conversation. But that's a thing. Everyone's always talking about that. You get the Ace of Wands.
Great. Joe Boginski and Karen Boginski, thank you for sending us this deck. And I'm going to send you a personal thank you in some way. Like I said, I originally thought this deck was psycho.
You can't say that on a thing.
I can say it. Joe's my old friend. But I really have a lot of respect for it, and especially if Aliza says this is her favorite star card ever.
That is my favorite star card ever.
So Aliza's class, it's somewhere out there on the web. If you go to the SAW website, it's pretty easy to find. Every picture tells a story. It's coming after Labor Day, and if you're listening to this after Labor Day, we'll probably run it again, and I'll be taking it, and I'm really excited. And
thank you, Tom.
Thank you, Aliza.
Thank you, Tom.